like a Hellcat. Like a Hellcat.
That's a little bit better. It is a stunner from Fabio Quagliarella. Top again for Jacko, who's in for Roma and scores.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie Sitdown, World Football Index's podcast of Calcio, told like it is. I'm Frank Crivello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How are we doing on this Tuesday evening? Back in our normal time slot?
Yeah, back in the normal time slot, and a little bit of a late start, but doing all right. Getting geared up for the Thanksgiving with the turkey and everything. Let's go. They are back. We never left Stevie.
Right. Hey, Stevie, make sure you tell your paisans about us, huh? Hey, look at these t-shirts we got from Hardcore Italians. You definitely want to check them out. It's freaking awesome gear. I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like we're reading our mind, watching our podcast, with this. So, hey, definitely go to their website and get their shirt because it's very, very comfortable, Frank.
Maybe they can come up with some Serie sit-down gear. That'd be kind of
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Baby steps, we're wearing their shirt.
Baby steps.
We're wearing the shirt. We're playing the part. So why not? So we do have a guest joining us this week. He is earning his first cap on the Serie Sit Down. He's the producer and host of at Forza Napoli Pod. He's the calcio writer for World Football Index. We say benvenuto to Joe Fischetti. Ciao, Joe.
Ciao, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be on. Pleasure to get my first cap.
Pleasure to have you on with us, my friend. We can find you at Joe_Fischetti5, and that is FISCHETTI 5. Why don't we start? You're a Napoli supporter, so clearly we are going to talk about NapoliMilan, and you're gracious enough and classy enough to come on. Especially on a podcast hosted by two Milan supporters. I salute you. We promise we'll be nice. But start with maybe some of your work. Tell us about the Forza Napoli pod, and then maybe even how you came into being a Napoli supporter.
Yeah, for sure. The podcast we started in the summer during the lockdown, actually, when the league was not playing, which was intentional. I figured, let me give it a bit of a soft launch, work out the kinks. And now we're full-blown 2 episodes a week. It's a Napoli podcast, but I cover all matches. Every other episode I do about a 20-minute segment where I recap every single match, more analytically rather than simply describing the goals. Anybody could go watch highlights. I don't need to do that. But I give my 2 cents, and it helps with the writing side of things as well. And I find there's no better way to be able to preview a Napoli match than to watch what other teams are doing. And I listen to a ton of podcasts. I'm a podcast junkie. But again, and especially, I'm biased because I host a club-specific pod. I love your podcast. I love the other ones that cover the entire league. But I also listen to, crazy enough, I listen to Milan podcasts. I listen to Roma podcasts, our rivals. I don't listen to too many Juve podcasts. I haven't made that. But again, if you want the most in-depth understanding of a club, the best way to get it is from those fans. They know it best, just like you guys would know a lot more than I would about Milan. Sorry. So yeah, and then the writing. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to write as much as I would like to lately. With 2 matches a week, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
But trying to.
Yep. Excellent stuff. Now, I think what we want to start with here, Joe, is the article that you actually did come out. A player that has gotten Richard in my attention, albeit on a team that's performing poorly, and that is this young striker Gianluca Scamacca. And I think that now, he's really catching the eye of everybody in Serie A, and he's making a lot. He's starting to make some. He started by making some ripples. Now he's making some waves. So what pushed you to go in the direction of Scamacca? And tell me some of the things that you've noticed about his game and some of the things that you like about him.
Yeah, it was, to be honest, the first thing that caught the reason I looked at him was because I'm in a Fantacalcio, and so I picked him up in the pool. But also just watching the matches, I noticed that he has all the attributes of a true number 9, and that's a position that's in very low supply at the moment. So I started paying attention, and he went on a bit of a hot streak. He actually started out, at least with Genoa, scoring his first goals in the Coppa Italia. I think it was against Catanzaro. He scored a brace there, and then he got a bit fortunate because Destro, I believe, picked up an injury. So that allowed him to get into the starting lineup. He scored again. He scored the following match. I think it was against, I want to say, Sampdoria and one other team. And then he also got a nice assist in the Roma match. So even though Destro's come back now, he's taken over that starting role. And I think he's going to be a player that if he keeps this up, there are going to be a lot of clubs keeping an eye on him. I did see him a little bit last year for Ascoli in Serie B. I just sort of started getting into Serie B, so I didn't watch it religiously. I still don't, mostly just highlights. But he scored 9 goals in 33 appearances there, which is a pretty decent output. I mean, it's not top of the league or anything.
Yeah.
And he's also doing really well on the international stage with our U21 team.
Yep.
He picked up, I think he got a brace against Luxembourg, and then he scored against Sweden as well. So right now he's firing on all cylinders. He almost got one this weekend against Udinese, but it was taken away by the VAR.
Yep.
He's playing really well.
And you guys got Dazen over in Canada, right? And do they got Serie B over there?
Occasionally they pick up the odd match.
Okay, I'm just curious. We don't get anything here, so we have to really find the illegal way to kind of get Serie B here, if at all. So
with us, you can. I think they have an app. I don't know. You can watch all the highlights on their app.
Okay.
Where I watch most of mine, and then I have a sports book that I use. That if you put a small wager on the game, then you get to watch the game live. So.
Okay, right on. So it's the one thing that drew us to Scamacca and early on the season when he made his first start. And first, you mentioned how he was fortunate that Destro didn't get to play because of injury, and he got to start. I think Genoa are fortunate ones because Destro was never going to score anyway, right? So it's good for them. Good fortune for them that he didn't play, and then they found this gem in Scamacca. The first thing we noticed about him is like you mentioned in the article, his size. He's like what 6'3", 6'4",
6'5".
It's 6'5". Yeah, he's a big guy. And he's very agile. He's very mobile for a big guy. He's got a full frame, but a lot of the big guys are very slow. He's got pace. He's got a quick first touch, and he's got good passing ability. What about his? Obviously we can talk about the goals he wants, but I noticed in the article as well that you talked about his vision for passing and setting up his teammates was also something very unique for a number 9 that we haven't seen in a while. It's been missing from the Italian game. It seems like. Tell us more about that. What you've seen from Scamacca over this season and even last and the year before that.
Yeah, well, that's you put it perfectly, Richard. That he's so versatile. He can do so many things. Speaking to two Milanisti, he reminds me a little bit, dare I say, like Zlatan. I mean, no one's that confident, but he's very confident. I mentioned in the article, he's got just the right amount of arrogance, even, which is something you want from a striker. I mean. They tend to be selfish people, and again, that's what you want from guys that put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah.
But you can also only be that confident if you can deliver, and he does. When he gets those chances, he puts them away. But he also has the ability to pass. I mentioned that one in the Roma match.
Yeah,
it was a perfect through ball on the ground. It was accurate. So, not all strikers are able to do that, especially the bigger ones. I mean, that's, I think, something that's more common in the modern game, where these are not guys that you're just lofting the ball up to them and they're a target man that'll take the ball down with their back to goal, hold up and lay off for the guy that actually puts the ball in the net. Now you're seeing these strikers like an Edin Dzeko too, that they have that touch where they can score, but they can also pass.
He doesn't strike me as a typical 9, or a traditional 9, even though he has the frame for it, as you guys have been talking about. He's got other technical qualities to his game. His passing, his even crossing too. And he plays with range. He doesn't sit in a central forward position. You see him moving around a lot, getting into areas where he can get the ball. I think there's good things coming from him. Where places that he could fit down the road. I know Roma fans are screaming for him. At least a couple of them that I saw on Twitter, and I think that would be that would actually be a very interesting fit. Edin Dzeko, how much longer is he going to play there? And is Borja Mayoral really the long-term answer? Inter's set at striker. Juve is set at striker. Milan, Ibra's not playing forever. And you look at some of the other teams at the top of the table, they're set at the striker position. But, the most glaring ones here, if Scamacca has a destination, in my opinion, at least Roma and then possibly Milan. But what do you think? I mean, with his skill set and knowing, having a chance to take a look at some of these other teams as someone that takes a look at Napoli's opponents and, eyes up the enemy, if you will, week in and week out. Where do you find his skill set best fitting among the top teams in Serie A?
I'm very curious to see where he ends up, because he's actually owned by Sassuolo. He's currently on loan. And right now he's on loan because they have Ciccio Caputo, so they don't want Scamacca rotting away on the bench. But Caputo, as well as he's playing, he's not that young, right? So, I'm curious to see whether Sassuolo goes to cash him in, or if they look to make him the striker of the future. Right. If the plan is to make him the striker of the future, they probably loan him out again for another year or two, maybe again to Genoa, since he's having success there. If they sell him, I think there's going to be a pretty long list of clubs that are going to be looking for him. I agree, Roma makes a lot of sense because that's a glaring weakness for them at the moment. Inter, Napoli signed Osimhen, so we don't need a number 9 right now. But I can also see a club like Juventus. Ronaldo, I don't know how long he's going to be at Juve for. Morata, he's playing well now, but again, I don't know how consistently well he's going to be. What's the future of Dybala? I hate to say it, but he seems like the type of player that could end up at Juventus and maybe sit on the bench and learn a thing or two, and then groom him to be the next striker over there. Yeah, no,
that's an interesting point. And I like the chat about Roma. It's because they have such a fantastic midfield right now. They got 5 good guys that can move the ball around, and they just need that big man to help facilitate that ball, kind of like the way Osimhen does for you guys. And I think if he can do that, if he slots into Roma, he can help set up those guys like Mkhitaryan, who loves his off the ball runs and get him even more goals than he's getting now. It's funny. Our buddies here, Milan Weekly Podcast, are on, and they're saying, could he become like a Piontek 2.0? We saw this with Genoa before, right? He was flourishing over there. Milan and snagged him up for 35 million euros. And he started the first 6 months very well. And then his first full season with Milan just disappeared. And part of it was the service. But there's always that worry when you go for a big name striker or someone you think that has the potential. Even like with you guys with Osimhen, there's always that unknown that he could be a flop. But I think with the tangibles that you're saying that he brings that we've seen, the chances of him being a flop are less likely unless he makes a move that doesn't make sense fit wise. Because I think that's the one thing that could really deter his trajectory. I think. Is there a team that you think he? I mean, obviously Roma fans, because he started with the Roma Academy. He's got the neck tattoos that it drives me crazy sometimes. But hey, to each their own. What do you think would be for him? I mean, obviously, making a move is maybe a good move or maybe not. Maybe what do you think for him? Is best to stay with the Sassuolo / loan moves, or try to push for a move to somewhere else where he can get a starting job? What do you think is probably best for his career?
If I were to say right now,
right,
I'd want him to stay where he is and get a little bit more experience. I mean, it's still his first season in Serie A. I mean, we're only 8 matches in.
Very young too.
Yeah, and so if it's working there, I mean, he's got Pandev playing with him. This is probably Pandev's last year. I don't know how much longer he's got in him, but that's a great player to play with and get some experience, and you can learn a lot from someone like that. My worry about a club like Milan is, other than Zlatan, and who knows, maybe Zlatan ends up with a role at the club beyond his playing career, which, again, his playing career may go on for a couple of years as well because of how well he takes care of himself.
13 more years.
Yeah, but I mean, he's another player that can teach him a lot. Yeah. But if Zlatan's not there, I mean, you guys know Milan have a very good squad, but it's a very young squad. And so I'd be a little bit concerned about that. I think he'd be great to stay where he is. I wouldn't mind seeing him play for Sassuolo as well, because the Zerbi seems to get the best out of everyone. So that would be interesting, and that's a bit more of an attacking style, free-flowing open game that they play. So that could be a team where he can bag a lot of goals potentially.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Great stuff about Gianluca Scamacca. Player with a bright future. Let's see. And smart man, Joe, you're drinking a beer here during the podcast. We appreciate that. Now you're of the Canadian persuasion. What do we got there? We got Labatt's, we got Molson's. What do we do?
No, I'm actually drinking Alexander Keats.
Okay.
Hey, well, since you're drinking, is it drinking because you saw George's question? George has a question saying, "Hey, man, what's up with Milik this season? Obviously, he's been in. He's not in good favors with Gattuso and the team. Give us an update on Milik. Is he just completely exiled and on the bench, or what's going on with him?"
He is. Yeah, he's been. The funny thing is, over the international break, we had 16 players on international duty, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And the club made an announcement, something to the effect of wishing our 15 players good luck. That's because they weren't including Milik. That's how far removed he is.
It has ADL written all over it.
Yeah. So no, he's basically at home. Occasionally we see him pop up at training, but it seems like it's just waiting for the January transfer window to get what we can get for him.
And we'll have a few more questions here about Napoli, but let's talk about the game that took place on Sunday. Napoli and Milan at the time was third against first. Lots of talk about, this game and the buildup heading in. We thought there'd be goals when these two hook up at the San Paolo. There seems to be, and there was this time. We had a lot of different theories going out there about, Napoli will win because of this, Milan will win because of this. But let's break down what happened, and let's start with the team news. First with Napoli, it was Merritt in goal with Noah Spina available, and then a back four, a solid enough back four for Napoli of Giovanni Di Lorenzo, Manolas Koulibaly, and Mario Rui, and then a bit of a double pivot there with Bakayoko and Fabian Ruiz, and then they played a three-man attack. They basically had a three-man attacking midfield. This was the lineup that I actually expected. There was talk about Patania. I didn't agree with it. I thought that Dries Mertens would start as a false nine, and he did. Lorenzo Insigne to the left, Herving Lozano to the right, with Politano down the middle, and I think that interchanged a lot too. But this, Osimhen wasn't available, and Joe, the biggest reason why I thought that this was the more practical lineup was because it was so dominant when these two teams last played each other in July.
Yeah, I wanted to see Patania, to be honest. I was concerned when I saw the squad being released. I couldn't figure out who was going to play where. The one thing I was sure of was that Politano would play on the right, and he didn't. He ended up playing in the middle, and to your point, Frank, they moved around quite a bit. There wasn't much of a position really for any of those front four. And I think that ended up hurting us more than it helped us. But it was one of those things where if it worked out, we would have been singing Gattuso's praises. Turns out half of Napoli Twitter thinks he should be fired now.
Yeah.
It was a very harsh reaction. I wanted to see Patania in there to give us a bit more structure. I really like how Politano's been playing on the right. Insigne is definitely our left winger. And I think Dries, especially over the last half a season or so, he's been more clinical as the number 10 rather than as the lone striker. And I don't know if that's just he's in a rut or if it's his age is catching up to him. But I was concerned because he hasn't been scoring that much lately. We were hoping that he scored a really nice goal in Nations League for Belgium, a free kick in his hometown. We were hoping that would give him the confidence, but it didn't really seem to work. What we saw was that whether Politano was lined up in the center or not, he just naturally drifted out to the right wing a lot. And he was one of our better players in the match, but he did it on the right wing. That forced Lozano to cover in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a good place for Lozano to be playing. We've seen when Ancelotti played him in the middle in the 4-4-2, it didn't work. Gattuso tried playing him in the middle, didn't work. When he plays on the wing, he plays very well. So that was the challenge. We had 3 wingers on the field to play in a front 4.
Yeah.
Now, Richard, I think the reason why I liked the idea of Dries Mertens up front is because with Milan, you go back to the center back pairing of Simon Kjaer and Romagnoli. Let me give you the rest of the lineup. Donnarumma in goal. The back 4 was Calabria, Kjaer, Romagnoli, and Teo. The double pivot that we've all gotten used to with Benacer and Kessie. Çalhanoğlu in his attacking midfield role, flanked by Ante Rebic to the left and Salamakers to the right, and of course Zlatan up front. I think a big reason why I liked Mertens is I think that a player like Petagna starting is, for me, in my opinion, just not as mobile.
Yeah.
And when you have a center back like Romagnoli, who is come back from injury and has shown that he has struggled over the last couple of games, I don't think you want to put a striker in there against him that's probably going to be a little bit more predictable in his play. Yeah. Where Mertens is a guy that can pull things apart. And then you got that front 4 basically can move all over the place. You're going to have him in wider areas where there's a better chance you're going to have Napoli attacking in wider areas, I should say, where there's a better chance for Romagnoli to get switched off in those certain situations or arrive late on a ball played in. And to me, it seemed that that's like what Gattuso was going for. And for me, the biggest concern going into that game was the defensive form of Romagnoli, but also Teo Hernandez.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I think, also another thing, other than, Romagnoli being needed someone they can predict like Petagna, having someone like Mertens, Kjaer is not the quickest guy either. He's right. Very smart and he's great positionally, but he isn't that fast. And having all these little guys there that can, interchange and beat you past the ball, that's something I think that was absolutely, going to be in favor of Napoli. And even Bonetti said in the podcast, on the air, he was saying how people were saying oh, I'm not sure about Dries Mertens, but Mertens has scored 30 goals before as a false 9. Sure. Now, granted, it was a different system, but I think coming in a situation like this where you had 2 slower of foot center backs, one especially whose confidence is not that great, it's a perfect time to try to exploit that with some pace. And we saw a little bit in the game where some of the pacier guys, Politano at one point, I remember, just blew by Romagnoli. So having that pace is always going to be good against a slower footed defenders, I should say.
Yeah, I think if that was definitely Gattuso's game plan to go with speed over size. I think what most Napoli fans would have preferred to see, though, is then to go back to that 4-3-3, playing ceane on the left, Mertens in the middle, Politano or Lozano on the right, whichever one, and put Zielinski in the middle to give us a bit more creativity, a bit more of a direct play. Zielinski plays more vertically. The problem is Gattuso stuck with the 4-2-3-1, which is a system that works really well with Osimhen because he creates so much space with his speed. But without Osimhen, even with Lozano in that position, as fast as he is, it's not as effective. Yeah. And what's been really hurting Napoli lately is we haven't had that creativity in the midfield. So those guys can only do so much, but they need service. And Fabian can be the best player in the world on one day and then disappear the next day. I mean, he played amazing again in the Nations League against Germany in that big 6-0 win, but he didn't do a whole lot in this match. So I would have I'm fine with Mertens playing as a striker or as a false 9, but then I would have liked it to be in a 4-3-3 with Zielinski in the midfield.
You mentioned creativity and stuff like that. Steve from Milan Weekly Podcast says, do Napoli miss Alan? And he had a little bit, creativity with him, and also, the Grinta in the middle of that pitch. Do you guys miss him and some of the stuff that he brought, or do you feel like the job that Fabian and Bakayoko, what they're doing, are more than enough to make up for his loss?
I miss Prime Alan when he first joined the club. the problem was the time had come for him. He wasn't motivated anymore. He wasn't happy about the lack of playing time that he was getting. So I think I missed the qualities that he brought us when he was at his best, but it was the right move to move on, I think. I think Zielinski might have had a better chance of playing in this match if he wasn't. I think he's still kind of recovering from COVID. He seems to be close to 100% now, but we definitely lack that creativity in the midfield. And the one thing that Bakayoko gives us that I think Alan had too was that sort of tenaciousness on the defensive end. So I don't think we're lacking there.
Yeah, he's really good there.
I'm sure we'll talk about Bakayoko and that whole situation.
Maybe.
I almost think that the Napoli shape is just too and this is I've heard this has been a criticism of Gattuso before in big games. I mean when he was managing Milan, and we had Nima on here, and we were after the derby, and he even pointed it out. He said Gattuso tends to pucker up in bigger games and tends to maybe get away from the identity, that maybe a Napoli should be, or, when he was managing Milan, and Milan should be, and be able to have the confidence in his team to be able to take the game to opponents. Now, I mean, you look at the statistics and they're kind of flattering to Napoli. I mean, in the first half, they're
very flattering.
They had 63% of the possession. They outshot Milan 11-7. They had shots on target. There was really nothing that really troubled Donnarumma there in the first half. Nothing that troubled Milan as a defense. And I think it was just the ability that, okay, you're going to send your front four, you're going to move them around. We're going to have our back four compact, and then we're also going to have Kessie and Benacer in front of the back four, cutting things out. And I'm going to get to Benacer in a minute here because I thought he was man of the match. Zlatan got the brace, but I thought Benacer was the best player on the pitch in this game. But Casey Cordray is saying, please explain how Zlatan was able to dominate everything against Koulibaly and Manolas, when every header, duel, etc. Well, let's look at the opening goal in the 20th minute. Zlatan on a header from Hernandez. And it was a movement where Zlatan starts charging forward, and both Manolas and Koulibaly are dropping off as if to pick him up. And it's a play where Zlatan stops briefly, and largely because Hernandez's cross is coming in front of both Manolas and Koulibaly. So they take that step back, which is just enough for Zlatan to have his room and head the ball home. And he headed it from quite a distance.
Beautiful.
I think that, how Zlatan was able to dominate everything was, and I went into this saying, I don't think this is a Zlatan game just because of Koulibaly. As great as this man has been at 39 years old, Koulibaly is one of the best defenders in the world.
Yeah.
But I was astonished that Zlatan found space. I mean, and I think it was a positioning issue on the opening goal here, where they got fooled into constantly tracking back and tracking into the penalty area, and the cross came in a lot more shallow. And Zlatan saw it. He read the game. He read it. He stopped, headed it home. So that's where Zlatan becomes effective. He has the instincts to read it. I think that this is a positioning issue for Koulibaly and for Manolas on this goal, but smart on the part of Milan to see it and see it and read it and pick it out, and smart on Zlatan and being able to adjust and catching the center backs, getting just out of position enough for him to score. That's what veteran strikers and world-class strikers and one of the best to do it do in these situations. Thoughts on the center backs in defending that goal?
Yeah, I agree with you that I also thought Koulibaly was going to win that battle. And when we've seen Koulibaly get beat, it's usually by speed, not by size, because he's a big, strong guy himself. Yeah. You're right, Frank, as well, that he did take a slight step back. If you watch his eyes on that play, he's waiting for the ball, and Zlatan attacks the ball. Mm-hmm. That's how he got there first. It was a world-class header. I mean, even if no one's around you, it's hard to put a header in from that spot. Yeah. One thing I do when I review the goals, I always rewind about half a minute or minute and see what happened before the goal, because what you'll find is there's always a bit more blame to go around. There's never just one player. And what happened on this play, it started with a throw-in. I think it was Theo Hernandez that played it into Frankesi. He plays it back to Romagnoli. Romagnoli gives it to Bennacer. At that point, when Romagnoli has the ball, Lozano is marking Theo on the wing. Bennacer steps up. 3 Napoli players collapse on him, including Lozano, which leaves Theo wide open on the wing. And play in all the space in the world to play in the perfect cross, and he did it. And even if it wasn't Theo, Çalhanoğlu set himself up between the lines and between Manolas and Fabian. So I think it was Rebic that received the pass from Bennacer and touched it back to Theo, but he could have just as well laid it off to Çalhanoğlu, who was wide open, and he would have had a similar opportunity to play an in-swinging cross or to carry right down our throat. So it's easy to blame Koulibaly, and he's certainly not without blame on that goal, but I think Lozano needs to bear some of that one as well. Yeah,
I mean, allowing the cross to come in.
Keeping up the point on what Casey was making about how Zlatan just won all the aerial duels against Koulibaly and Manolas. Now, Koulibaly and Manolas are both great leapers. They're great leapers, and Zlatan, just a couple replays you watch, Zlatan being 6 inches above them. You're like, holy jeez, this guy's 39 years old, and he's out jumping 2 great leapers. And a lot of it was using his intelligence, his experience, and trying to and getting to the balls before the other guys. But some of it is just pure leaping ability by Zlatan. I mean, it's incredible for a 39-year-old doing his, whatever jiu-jitsu or whatever he does to keep in shape. But my goodness, that's impressive when you can out-jump Manolas and Koulibaly by that significant of a margin.
Yeah, very, very athletic. I mean, on the second goal, he scores with, I think the best description I heard of it was like a UFC-style flying, right?
Yeah. Flying knee, yeah.
He's got that athleticism, that creativity, and that confidence to do things like that. The thing that always gets me is when he controls the ball with a karate kick, 6 feet in the air. Unbelievable athleticism. He's defying all logic with the way he's playing right now.
I pull my groin watching him. I'm like, oh my god, how do you do that?
Yeah. The stuff he's doing I'm 45. The stuff he's doing at 39. I'd like to be able to kick the ball in the yard with my kids.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not trying any of that stuff. So, so 1-0 at halftime, Milan, and then in the second half, I mean, it was more of the same story. I mean, it's almost like Milan were happy to let Napoli have the ball. Really made Napoli predictable throughout the whole game. Zlatan's second goal, and let's get to that a little bit here too, because I think when you take a look at this, Giovanni Di Lorenzo and Manolas on the right-hand side of that defense, they had a horrible night. Manolas gets outpaced, this time by Rebic. We'll talk about how he got outpaced on the third goal here in a little bit. Rebic gets enough space, puts the ball across. And again, Zlatan is free and, jiu-jitsu, UFC knee smash into the goal to make it 2-0 to Milan. And I have never seen Koulibaly switch off like that. I give all the credit in the world for Zlatan for reading it, Rebic for creating the space to pick out the cross and find him. But I was astonished to see Koulibaly switch off like he did in that situation.
Yeah, that one, it's a bit harder to defend him. It almost looked to me like he wasn't sure whether he should play the offside or mark the man, and that little bit of indecision. And Richard, you mentioned Zlatan's intelligence.
Yeah,
that was enough. That's all he needs. There was also some criticism. I'm not sure how I feel about it on how Meret played the ball. I didn't put too much blame on Meret just because he had to defend the shot and the cross, so that kind of froze him to where he was. There were a lot of people kind of saying that he should have come out and grabbed that ball. And then again, you mentioned Di Lorenzo, and one of the things that in my preview that I actually said concerned me, because this very thing happened the last time we played against Milan, was that when Di Lorenzo makes his runs, our fullbacks play like wingbacks. They get forward quite a bit. Di Lorenzo, Kusai, Rui, they get forward quite a bit. And I was concerned that while Politano has been very good, he's not the best defender, and neither is Fabian. And when a fullback plays like a wingback, you need those guys to then cover them when they get up the pitch. Now, Politano wasn't going to cover them because he was the one that got mixed up with Di Lorenzo on that play up the field, where it seemed like Di Lorenzo was expecting Politano to come back to him, so he chested the ball down. But Politano continued his run. So that gave the ball right back to Milan. Both of them got caught. Now we have Manolas defending Rebic. That's a mismatch. Manolas, he's good in the air, but he's not nimble enough to, that step over froze him just long enough. And again, it was another really good cross. I think on all three goals, I felt like you could be critical of Napoli, but you also had to just tip your hat to Milan because they did what they had to do and they made great plays to score those goals.
Yeah. They found and exposed the areas. They went 2-0 up there, and then to Stevie's point, Milan absorbed a lot of pressure before that second goal. I mean, and it's classic. You're up a goal to nil. You're coming out of halftime. The first thing you're going to expect over the next 15 minutes, and the first 15 minutes of the second half is critical. Yeah. You got to keep them out. You got to go hunting for another one. They're coming out looking for an equalizer, and they're going to throw a lot of energy at you, which is what Napoli did. Milan diffused it to the point where they could go and make it a 2-0 game and make it a bigger mountain to climb. Gattuso brings out Lozano and brings on Zielinski, and that added some more dynamism to what Napoli could do. And sure enough, Dries Mertens does make it 2-1. Richard, it's just an issue where Milan are all over the place. They got to the first ball, but Dries Mertens was there for the second ball, and just one of those where I think you throw your hands in there and said, hey, I think you did everything right. The ball just falls for Mertens to make it 2-1.
Yeah, and kind of leading to Joe's point earlier when he's talking about when you see a goal, just kind of go back a little bit. If you watch that play, how it actually started, Kessié, who's normally Mr. Dependent when he's in his own defensive zone, both Zielinski, who just came on, and Bakayoko, got right in front of him and took the ball from right there, and then he got over to the left wing side, got in the middle, got blocked like you mentioned, and Mertens got it in for the goal. But one of the rare mistakes that you'll see from Kessié in a game was brilliantly done. I thought the timing by both Bakayoko and Zielinski to pounce on him when they that's perfect timing, and then Zielinski, he's just beautiful. He just slides it off to the side, and he sets all the play up, so he should get like a secondary assist to Martino Puccio's point from earlier in the tweets. But it was. It was a let off for a moment, but that's what Napoli needed to get back in the game, and it looked like at that point, all the momentum was starting to go Napoli's way, 2-1 at that point, and you're thinking, okay, game on. But Milan were fairly comfortable, fairly stout defensively for majority of the game, I thought.
Yeah, Steve says, I have to tip my hat to Joe. I wouldn't be this calm after a defeat. We know, Steve. We listen to your pod.
He'd be shirtless too, so
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit more one of the more calm Napoli fans.
You're analytical. You're analytical. We like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way. I get, Richard and I have this way we approach it.
Yeah.
Man, just saying, don't mind me, guys. It's 3:40 a.m. Just passing by to put
bless
a like. Man, bless you. You're doing the Lord's work. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
But you have to admit, Kessié versus Bakayoko was an amazing and fun battle to watch, especially for the next 3 or 4 years. There was a challenge in the second half where I think it was a 50-50 situation between Lorenzo Insigne and Frank Kessié. And I almost tweeted. Did you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I almost tweeted. I said, I'm Lorenzo Insigne and Frank Kessié is life.
And he thought he got penalty. He thought he got fouled, but I thought it was a shoulder.
You went into a 50-50 challenge with a man.
It's like Theo Hernandez a couple weeks in the derby when he tried to go with Lukaku and he just bounced off Lukaku. Same thing. You're going off against the big man.
You went into a ground duel. You went into a ground duel with a man. Yeah. With all 5'4" of you, and God bless you for trying, Lorenzo. But Frank Kessie's not somebody you try to you're going to win a duel with. No. So and then Presidente Frank the Tank Kessie. Presidente, tell me you're having a Verna with a slice of lime. Or slice of lemon. I'm sorry, slice of lemon. I don't want to offend Presidente.
Oh my goodness, can't get blocked from our own show.
Yeah, I know. As a third year Cagliari fan, I get used to losing. When they draw or win, it makes it that much better. There you go.
There you go.
When you set your expectations low, it's hard to be disappointed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Petagna does come on in the 69th minute for Politano. At that point, too tired tonight, Frankie. Well, Presidente, that's exactly when you drink one. you can sleep better. All right. So, but anyway, Joe Petagna in the 69th. Okay, Bakayoko gets the red card on the second yellow, which I don't think anybody was going to pick a fight over. He tried to stop him. I can't remember who was going forward with the ball, but he tried to stop it. And
Teo.
yeah, with the tail. It was Teo. Yeah, committed a professional foul.
Well, let me ask you this. So the first foul, the first yellow was in the 16th minute against Teo, or against Scamacca, excuse me, and stepped on his ankle, clear yellow, right? I actually think he should have been ejected earlier in the match. I think it was around the 50th minute or so. He elbows, and I forget who it is. I mean, it's a clear elbow on a play, and I thought he should have got a yellow then. And then I thought that was the one that he actually got the second yellow on was the least of the 3 fouls, I thought. But to be fair, also I thought there's a play where Zlatan could have got a yellow for an elbow on Koulibaly, and there's some other questionable plays that they were missed in the game for sure. So I'm not going to say that it was all Napoli, but I thought Bakayoko's already playing with house money because he should have been ejected far earlier in the game. At least I don't know if you saw that play, but it was questionable for me. I thought that was far worse than the one he actually got the yellow for.
Yeah, so it's funny because I interact with a lot of Milanisti and I interact with a lot of Napolitani, and the funny thing is on the first one, Milanisti that's a definite yellow, maybe even a red. Studs to the boot.
Mm-hmm.
Napoli fans, and I subscribe to this being a biased Napoli fan, was that Bakayoko's playing a pass and Scamacca steps in as he's landing from his pass, and it's sort of more incidental contact. Now, I get incidental or not, that's maybe still a yellow, but then to your point, Richard, if Zlatan's elbow to Koulibaly's face may have been incidental too, that should have been yellow too. So there's a bit of a thing there. But I agree 100%. There were probably 3 or 4 warning signs that Bakayoko was going to pick up a second yellow. And I think that was one of the mistakes that Gattuso made in this match, not recognizing that or at least deciding that it was worth the risk, which I don't think it was, especially being down. He could have easily brought in Zielinski to replace Bakayoko and go with a more offensive midfield. Or if he didn't want to do that, I know Demme and Lobotka haven't played as much lately, but they're more of that defensive style.
Exactly.
But it was a very risky play to leave him in. The way he was playing, there were a number of opportunities where he could have, like you said, Richard, he could have got another yellow. So that was unfortunate. The funny thing is I even thought that even the second one, I think, again, everyone sort of consensus is that it's a definite yellow. In real time, for sure. But when I saw the sort of slow motion replay, it didn't seem like that harsh of a tackle. But again,
I agree.
You don't always get yellows just for that tackle. Sometimes you get them for the accumulation of fouls. Sometimes a team gets one because too many players are fouling the same guy, which was happening to Teo Hernandez in this one. So when you put all that together, it is a yellow, and he should have been sent off. And I do put a bit of that on Gattuso for not taking him out sooner.
Presidente, just make sure that we'll just pray that my internet doesn't go out. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we got Joe on, so that's okay.
Yeah. So, no, Demme was available. Lobotka was available. That substitution could have been made. So strange that, especially, and I think it's astonishing for me. I think that's just one of those where Gattuso froze as a manager, because especially in a period where you're allowed up to 5 substitutions, I thought that was one that you could have easily made, considering. But Petagna comes on shortly after that, which changes the shape somewhat here for Napoli, even though they're down a man. And I think that, watching these last 20 odd minutes, it looked like Milan were more than happy to say, all right, you're down to 10, but we're still going to let you have the ball. We'll just keep it all in front of you. We'll win it, especially. And this is where I'm going to have my Ismael Benacer appreciation moment. That man cut out everything. Everything.
Yeah.
Every time I saw him, he was winning a tackle. He was intercepting a pass. He was cutting out a passing lane. Usually in big games like this, he's man-marking a dangerous midfielder. Back in the derby, he man-marked Barella. This time he didn't man-mark anybody per se, but he covered a lot of ground, did a lot of protecting. Benacer was Benacer, whatever, however people pronounce it. I thought he was the best player in this game.
That's a fair shout, and I thought the defense was very stout all game long, picking up passes. It was all led by Chiara, I think, but overall, Benacer doing a great job. Kessie was doing a great job. Rebic and Scamacca's coming back, playing doing defensive work. Teo had a much better game defensively and offensively, I thought, overall. And Romagnoli, this is his best game since he's been back. So it was a group effort there, but absolutely the midfielders were doing their job cutting out the passes, making life difficult for all the plays that Napoli likes to set up. Because if Napoli get going, they'll tear you apart. They'll tear apart anybody. And I thought Milan did a great job of timing their pressing as well. We saw this during the game, is that at various points they picked the players who they would press. Like Fabian, they would stay away from, and then certain players, and Ciane gets the ball, they pounce on them or whatever. And I thought that was brilliantly done by Bonetta and Pioli to set that up pre-match to get those, points where they had the pressure points where they had to step up, put the pressure, and cause them to change their game plan a bit and alter it. Because in the beginning of the game, we saw they were going after Teo and Romagnoli as you would, and it wasn't working. And then eventually tried to go to the left side and try to go Calabria and Salamakers, and that wasn't working. They were trying different pressure points, but Milan stood tough, and I thought the two midfielders were excellent in that one.
Yeah, for sure. The double pivot was outstanding between Kessie and Benacer. I just thought Benacer was better. Trust in Padre Pioli's plan and Lord Bonetta in this case.
Dapper. He's dapper too, man. Look at that. The way he dressed.
Yeah. Pretty sharp. Just as long as he's not playing center back for us anymore. We'll talk about the Ibra injury because this win does come at a cost for Milan, but I can't go without talking about Jens Petter Hauge. Just confirming the miserable night for Manolas with that step over and the finish. Just a treat to see as a goal. It's one of my goal of the week candidates.
Absolutely.
And that confirmed the win for the Rossoneri. It was assisted actually by Benacer. He played him through, and it was exploiting that left-hand side where Manolas is kind of on an island because Di Lorenzo's pushing forward and he's leaving that space, and that's exactly where they went again. Jerry Mancini's in the house. Just remember the best Italian team in Champions League. We'll get to that, Jerry. Shut up.
Is he talking about Juventus?
No, Juventus lost the game.
Oh, he's a Roma fan, right?
So Hauge came in ready for a big game. Balls for our Milan youth for once. Absolutely. The kid's going to be a player.
We saw, to Joe's point, a lot of great passes that really split apart the defenses, right? For the first goal, there was a pass that set up Teo Hernandez. I think it was from Benacer. The second goal was a beautiful play by, who's escaping me now? Çalhanoğlu. Yes, Çalhanoğlu, and then Benacer on the third one. So there's some great through ball passes. They weren't given to the guys that were leading their guys, and they was brilliantly done, and they just well done overall.
Yep. And I saw Casey talking about Milan actually, played their own plan and didn't just try to play Napoli at their game. I agree with that. I mean, you can see more than happy to let Napoli have the ball, try to make them as predictable as possible. In the areas where they countered, they exploited the spaces that the fullbacks left. I mean, you look at two of the three goals where it happened. The other one came on an early ball, in from Teo Hernandez. So Rossoneri win 3-1. They remain top of the table on 20 points. I'm still trying to get my arms around this idea.
Well, with that, Casey brings up a good point. Is there a new expectation for Milan after beating Inter Napoli and still in first place? For me, no. For me, it's still Champions League.
I don't think so. I think it's top four, and I keep saying it. Whether
he says yes, but.
Yeah, I mean, Steve wants to win things, and that's fine. But I think considering I will take a top four finish of any kind as a, and I've said this to Steve. I've said this on their podcast. I think the very first time I came on, I said, I can accept fourth with the idea that it is a stepping stone to greater things. I mean, if we got to take steps to get there, if this is a step to get there at the end of the season, then I'm perfectly fine with that. So, as far as Napoli is concerned here, Joe, this drops him to sixth, puts him on 14 points. I mean, but this is so gosh darn early. I mean, first and eighth are separated by 6 points. But a game, where the courts have probably been unfair to you guys. The sporting judges have been unfair to you guys. So you're already uphill in that sense. I don't think that this is an indictment on Napoli's title credentials or top four credentials. We're only 8 games into the season, but are you worried that maybe when we are looking at the final points at the end of the season, that this is one that you wish, would have and should have gone a little bit differently?
Absolutely. I think it's okay to lose the occasional match. I made this point after we lost to Sassuolo that I took a look at the total points that the championship championship team earned since we introduced 20 teams to the league. I think it was 2003, 2004, something like that. And on average, it was 88 points in a season, which meant that the champion every year loses the equivalent of just under 9 matches. And this is going to be probably one of the most competitive seasons maybe ever in Serie A because of COVID and all the matches with the injuries that we're having, and then just the general quality of so many, those top 8 clubs, really. So there's concern. Frank, you mentioned earlier how Gattuso's played in some of these bigger matches. One of the big concerns I have with Napoli right now is we can score against teams like Atalanta that play a more open style and give us that space, but teams are figuring out that if they sit back, like Milan did in this one, like Alkmaar did in the Europa League, they can beat us. We're having trouble breaking through those deep defensive teams. The other concern I have, and Gattuso mentions this pretty much even after we win, I think, is the mentality of this club, because they're fragile. And that's what we saw last year with the mutiny, that if they get into a funk and they start losing a couple of consecutive matches, we've now lost 3 consecutive home matches, are they going to break down mentally? And is that going to affect our play? The hope is that now we have Gattuso leading this team, and if anyone can help with mental fragility, he's the guy. And that's always the thing that he's praised for, is his ability to get the most out of his players. So there's some concern there, but I think just like you guys with Milan, Napoli keep saying it too, that our goal is to make the Champions League, to get back into it. I think in the back of our minds, there's that hope of challenging and desire to challenge for the Scudetto, but why put that added pressure on ourselves? We aim for the Champions League, very much like Lazio last year, right? Aim for the Champions League, and if you find yourself much deeper into the season still competing for the Scudetto, then yes, you go for it.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I think another dynamic, you're talking about how Gattuso's there, says hopefully that'll change the mentality a little bit. You also got Osimhen. Osimhen, you didn't have that last year, and we've seen so far this season, it's still early, but a lot of dynamicism with him. When he's on the pitch, it just changes the team even better. They're good, but when he's on the pitch, he's making those runs, he's dropping in, feeding the guys the balls. We were talking about earlier about Scamacca finding with the vision. Osimhen has it as well, and he sets up his team. Good things happen when he's on the pitch, and you guys didn't really have that in the past. So I think that's another thing going in your favor. So we'll see. I think you guys are certainly a strong candidate to be obviously in Champions League. It's going to be tough. The top 8 is very difficult this year, so it'll be very fun watching for the neutral fan, no doubt about it.
Last one for me about Napoli. It's keeping Koulibaly was critical for any kind of high-end ambitions that Napoli had, and there was a lot of talk about him being in the transfer window. And I you know what? The best defenders in the world are going to have a bad game here and there. I mean, I've seen, and this was not a vintage Koulibaly game by any stretch of the imagination. I have more concerns for his partner, because I still don't think the complement to him has been solved. And they've tried. I mean, Ancelotti tried with guys, and you had Albiol there forever, and then Albiol just, he relied a lot on experience, but at the end, his legs were going away from him a little bit, for lack of a better description. You've looked at Maksimovic, you're looking at Manolas now, who looks like he can't keep up with people. Is this still a glaring concern for you? The partner for Koulibaly at the center back position?
A little bit. I'm not terribly concerned about it. I think Koulibaly and Manolas have had better chemistry this season than they did last year. They were really of sorts, and a lot of that was with Koulibaly being in and out of the lineup with injuries and things like that. A lot of Napoli fans do want to see Maksimovic with Koulibaly because they played very well together last season. And it's surprising. I guess right now the way Gattuso's playing it mostly is Manolas is kind of our Serie A center back. Maksimovic is our Europa League center back, and then Koulibaly plays every match, which is concerning in itself because that's a lot of wear and tear. But I get the feeling that with guys like Insigne and Koulibaly, Gattuso lets them decide because he has that trust in them. They're both captains on this team. But what I would really like to see is Amir Rahmani. We paid money for this guy. He played amazing at Verona last year. And I think a lot of the reason why we got him was because we had planned on selling Koulibaly.
Right.
But I mean, now he's already picked up an injury and COVID during Nations League, but he hasn't played a single match, a competitive match this year other than friendlies before the season. So I would like to see him get some more playing time.
My last question about you guys is the goalie situation, right? You got Ospina and you got Meret, two guys who could probably be number one. From the optics of things, to me, it would seem Ospina would be the better choice as number one, just because his distribution is fantastic. But you, as a Napoli fan, what are you seeing? Because I mean, obviously, Meret has a lot of talent. He's still young, and Ospina's getting up there in age. But what do you want to see from the goalkeeper? Is there one that you're leaning towards more, or are they both pretty good? And you're just happy with either one?
Yeah, I'm fine with the timeshare at the moment. I think that the plan is for Meret to be the future, Ospina to help him along. Ospina has more experience. Mm-hmm. He is better with his feet, although I mean sometimes even that's a little bit questionable. He's made some great long balls. Meret, even in this Milan match, there was one play where he played the ball straight to Milan and nearly led to a goal.
Yeah,
and he had to bail himself out. Actually, the thing with Ospina is he seems pretty fragile too. He gets hurt pretty easily. He's one of those guys that's always got a minor knock and then comes back. It's been good to have both of them available, especially again with matches every 3 games. But my preference is for Meret to be the number one.
Yep. I actually do have a quick follow-up. Because I a game like this, a game like the AZ Alkmaar game, it's really got me thinking. Has really had me thinking about this the other day, and having you on gives me a chance to ask this. I would probably put it out there that, in this time of COVID where it's 0 fans, now it's 1,000 fans tops, that out of all of the teams in Serie A, Napoli miss their home atmosphere far more than anybody else. The atmosphere of the San Paolo. Would you agree?
Yeah, as a Napoli fan, 100%. We were bringing 50,000 people to Serie B games, so it's the heart and soul of this team. I agree completely. I think they're definitely club. Any derby, it doesn't feel like a real match to me anymore.
Yeah, right.
We'll see that against Roma on the weekend, but yeah, that we are definitely missing our fans.
Yep. All right, Casey, that's a great that's a great shout, and that's a great topic we can talk about. We'll hit that up after we wrap up all of the games, Richard.
Yeah, so we're going to start off first in the game that was hard to watch. It was difficult, the deluge in Crotone. Crotone hosting Lazio. This game was waterlogged. That's the understatement. Lazio find a way to win 2-0, goal by Ciro Immobile in the 21st minute. And then Joaquin Correa gets his first goal in the 58th minute to make it 2-0. Lazio win on the road. Then going on to Spezia, the game that turned out to be more entertaining than it should have been for Atalanta. Spezia hosting Atalanta. A lot of opportunities going both ways. Both keepers had to make big saves. A lot of opportunities going both ways, but 0-0. We had some goals taken away in this one due to offsides, but Atalanta getting pushed by the lowly Spezia team, and very entertaining for the neutrals. But I'm sure Atalanta fans are wondering, will that defense be able to hold up anybody? They struggled against Spezia, so not a good sign for them.
Let me jump in. If you would have thrown $100 on this game, that the game would have ended 0-0, you would have been walking out with $2,200.
Wow.
Under half a goal was at plus 2,200.
Wow.
That's just astonishing. That's not in the realm of, with those two teams would not have been in the realm of possibility. I would have looked at the over 4.5 at plus 240 far more than the under half a goal at plus 2,200.
Wow. Unreal.
Go ahead.
Unreal. Well, next game, Juventus hosting a team that's near and dear to George's heart, Cagliari. This game was a very entertaining game, but of course the leader, the talisman of the club, led them in the way. First, Ronaldo, goal of the week candidate in the 38th minute. He would follow that up 4 minutes later with another goal of the week candidate to make it 2-0. That would be all the goals in the game. Very entertaining game for both clubs, but Juventus doing what they have to do in this one and get it done. Interesting lineup, defensive choice in this game, but we can get to that a little bit later. Next game, Fiorentina hosting Benevento. This game looked like it should have been a easy 3 points for Fiorentina, but unfortunately, they got steamrolled here a little bit just because they weren't ready for the goalkeeper to have the performance that he did in this game. And I'm talking, of course, the Benevento goalkeeper, Lorenzo Montipo. He had a big game in this one. A lot of big saves against Lapadula and company. But the first goal and the only goal of the game would come in the 52nd minute. Beautiful play by Roberto Insigne to steal the ball, give it to Improta, and he would get the goal, make it 1-0. That would be all she wrote. Benevento get the shock 3 points on the road at Fiorentina to get that win. Moving on to a game that many people were tuning in to see because you had two very underrated teams, Hellas Verona and Sassuolo. Many wonder, would we see a lot of goals in this game because Sassuolo just gives up goals left and right, but we would see a nice defensive game from both clubs, and the goal scoring started in the 42nd minute. The goal of the week candidate by Jeremy Boga makes it 1-0. First half to go to halftime by that scoreline. 76th minute, they would double that scoreline. Berardi with a goal of the week candidate. 2-0 Sassuolo win on the road. Very impressive against a very stout defensive team in Hellas Verona. The game of the weekend, or one of the games of the weekend, I should say, Inter hosting Torino. And this game did not start out to the way Inter would have liked. Goal scoring started in the stoppage time of the first half. A beautiful, beautiful team goal by Torino off a turnover by Alexis Sanchez led to Simone Zaza getting a goal. Beautiful backheel flick by Mieta to set up Zaza for the goal. Makes it 1-0. Coming out of the half, Ansaldi, Torino will get a penalty. Ashley Young doing his best Zlatan Ibrahimovic impersonation and kicking someone. Unfortunately, this was in the chest and missed the ball completely. Penalty, and Saldi would convert, make it 2-0. Looked like we may be having a shock result here, but Inter respond quickly. Alexis Sanchez in the 64th minute, just 2 minutes later, makes it 2-1. Romelu Lukaku, 3 minutes after that, makes it 2-2. And then Lukaku would get his brace with a penalty in the 84th minute. Both penalties in this game, by the way, went to VAR, correctly called, might I add. And then to round out the comeback, Arturo Martinez in the 90th minute. A beautiful counterattack by Inter, set up by Lukaku. 4-2 Inter win, a thrilling game in this one, Frank. Inter were not expecting to have such a fight in this one, especially going down 2-0 early, but a great comeback by them.
Not when Belotti gets injured in warmups. You would have pretty much confirmed a victory for Inter at that point, but Zaza scored a nice goal. It was a nice piece of team play, and then he ends up with it in the end. I can't remember who backheeled it for him.
Miete.
Was it Mete? Yeah, Swallow Mete. I am intrigued by this Wilfred Singo, who played as a wingback for Torino in this game and drew the penalty. That Ashley Young only got a booking for. This guy's only had a handful of appearances, but he's impressed, it seems, every time he's gotten out there. Hopefully Torino's or Gianpaolo can figure this out and realize that they need to play him a little more. I think that to optimize his strengths, they switched to playing three at the back, which was surprising for me. Gianpaolo getting out of his comfort zone. He's been very stubborn with his 4-3-1-2, which would freeze out a guy like Singo. Singo's a wing back. He's not going to be a fullback. Right. So that for me was quite interesting. But then the Inter come back and, and everything. I mean, Barella was unbelievable again, in engineering that. When you take a look at the numbers on him, he created. But I think his performance was more shown up in his passing, through the middle of the park, and then also winning the ball in midfield. I think he was probably, for his defensive effort, more Gianpaolo non mangia il panettone.
Yeah, he might not be.
Might not be.
I'm one of the few people that doesn't think Gianpaolo should be fired. He actually wasn't even in this match because of COVID, and a couple of players as well. But Torino's, in some of the points that they've dropped, they started the season again against Atalanta, and they held their own. Atalanta was really clinical in that match. They kind of got screwed in the Lazio match. I think there was a questionable penalty called against them.
Mm-hmm.
think in the Sassuolo match, it was like a late come from behind loss. Yeah. And then this one, they're up 2-0, but again, they lose their best player in warmups and a guy that helps not just in the attack, but tracks back quite a bit in Belotti. So I'm not so sure yet that Gianpaolo should. I think he should get a panettone still.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Sure. I think Torino is one of those situations that needs time. Longo came in and took this thing over at the restart and really did next to nothing with it.
Yeah.
Then you want to jump back to the Juve Cagliari game here, and I know we got a couple other games to look at yet, but even Di Francesco, he got uncomfortable a little bit and decided to go to a 3-man defense, largely because he didn't have Diego Godin available to him.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided that Velukovic, who I think is a rising talent, as a defender. But you have Ragnar Klavan in there, and my feelings about him. If you start Ragnar Klavan, bad things are just going to happen to you. There's a reason why Jurgen Klopp kicked him out of Liverpool. And it seems like every time he plays for Cagliari, they lose. And then he goes off injured in the 70th minute. Does he have any pride to maybe he hurt his pride, or does he have any pride to begin with? So he's just so terrible. And then you have Pisacane back there, who has kind of been a frequent visitor, has flirted with being in crap on the cracker teams in the past as well. So they got uncomfortable, and as a result, I think Cagliari got uncomfortable, and it just led to, Juve dominating proceedings from start to finish. If you're going to be bad doing what you do. I guess would probably be my message to EDF. Don't try to tinker with a system that, and I get that he was probably limited in what was available to him. Nandez doesn't even look like he was in this squad, and he wasn't. So his hand was forced when you look at this lineup. But, Rog and Marin together in the middle of the park. He obviously didn't watch Croatia during the Nations League and watch Rog get sent off playing as a holding midfielder. Although Rog was actually pretty good in this game. And then he had, it was like a 3-4-2-1. It was just a total departure from what Di Francesco's used to doing. So two managers who really need to revive their careers and, put in systems that almost feel like panic mode in a sense. And that, more surprised that Di Francesco would do that, and I think that's just out of the personnel that he had available to him, because I think he's actually turned in some pretty good results, and he's got Cagliari a little bit on the upswing. You go to Juventus, you can probably be forgiven for losing at the J.
Yeah. But,
in Torino's case, seeing Gianpaolo doing a 3-man defense, that was a surprise.
Joe, we know Milan Twitter can be a little crazy at times. I know Napoli fans can be as well, but did you catch any of the Interisti during the game? Because they were going from one spectrum to the other. So early on the game, they're like, the world's dying, we're on fire, the coach sucks, everybody sucks. And at the end of the game, they're like, we're the best team in the world.
I don't know how any Interista hasn't had a heart attack with this team, because they are just – I couldn't. If I were an Interista, I wouldn't be able to watch these matches. Just like down. Yeah, it's just too much for my heart.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Pazza Inter.
Yeah.
Pazza
Never
Inter reared her ugly head in this one, but they found the resources to come back, score 4 times in 25 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, a fan base that's not having heart palpitations this season so far. That's Roma. Roma hosting Parma. We get goals in the 28th minute from Mayoral, excuse me. Then 32nd minute goal of the week candidate Mkhitaryan, beautiful goal there. And then the 40th, he would get his brace. 3-0. Joe, this is your next week's opponents. The midfield in this one, again, just doing beautiful wonders, working well together. It doesn't matter who they have as striker, apparently, because all they need is Mkhitaryan and Pedro pulling the strings, and Veretout as well. Well done by them. And Spinazzola, another good game for Roma. How worried are you going into this game against Napoli next week, or against Roma next week, excuse me?
Yeah, it's a big one. Roma's in probably, other than Milan, they've been in top form out of anyone in Serie. Yeah, they look great. This looked like one of their easiest wins all season. You mentioned Spinazzola played well, and they did this without Edin Dzeko in the lineup as well. He's still out with COVID, but that didn't seem to phase them.
Yeah.
Even they probably could have scored a couple more goals, but I felt like the whole second half was just a formality at that point. Scored all 3 goals in the first half, and then they kind of took their foot off the pedal. But yeah, it's concerning the way that that Roma is playing right now. That's going to be, to me, that now, especially with the loss to Milan, that's a huge match for Napoli. If we lose that one, we probably drop further, but if we win one, we obviously gain ground. So yeah, very concerned, but excited about it too. It's a derby. You know, we always want to take those games a bit more seriously.
I can't wait to watch that match. And this is just for Casey. Casey was asking, who do I support? Here you go. You got the answer right there. All right.
I was surprised in this game. Cristante deputized as a center back in a back 3 with Ibanez and Mancini. From the look of the setup, and I don't know if that's going to be a permanent thing. Smalling wasn't even in the squad, and I don't know if it was a COVID or if he's hurt.
No, food poisoning.
Food.
Oh,
Ooh, he had the fish.
did he have panettone?
He had the bat. He had the panettone that you give to the sacked managers.
He didn't get the memo.
Go, here you go. Here you go. Go be miserable for a little while, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Just Henrik Mkhitaryan. What else can you say about the form he's in right now?
He's playing fantastic.
Just astonishing. I mean, and I think that, and I didn't have a lot of glowing opinions about Roma going into this season. I don't feel, and this was before the transfer window shut, and the Smalling situation wasn't totally sorted out yet, whether or not they were going to have him back or not. And I thought that this is going to be a team that was going to go back to having some defensive issues, and but they're playing as complete as anybody. But let's pump the brakes just slightly. This is a Parma team that is going
to lose their manager in a minute.
Yeah, another manager that's not going to be eating panettone either. Liverani has brought his defensive tactics from Lecce, and he's inserted it in Parma, because Parma was far more astute defensively under D'Aversa than they were under Liverani. It's a lot more loose this time, and nobody knows what the hell is going on. I mean, and then you're bringing in guys. You're bringing in Gagliolo as a guy who's for me, I think Gagliolo is a left back. I shouldn't say that. He's actually a left center back. But yeah, Osorio I've never heard of. I mean, here's the lineup. I mean, I've never heard of half of these guys. Grassi I've heard of. Petzl is terrible. Luigi Seppe. If Luigi Seppe wasn't in goal, Roma had 7 shots on target. If Luigi Seppe wasn't in goal, Roma would have won this match 7-0.
Yeah.
So.
The problem is the one thing you don't want to be doing when you're just fighting for survival is focusing on youth. I mean, that's good for the future, but you might not have a future in Serie A the way they're going.
Exactly. If you're a middle of the table club that has no chance of moving up and no chance of getting relegated, then you play your youth guys and get them involved. But if you're getting relegated, don't go swinging like that. That's not the way. Not the right message you want to send to your fans. I guess it's. I don't know.
Actually, gave Alberto Grassi some good numbers here from his performance, but that was probably the only bright spot in Parma's efforts. I mean, this was just Roma completely overwhelmed them here.
Yeah, absolutely. A fun game to watch as a neutral. Sampdoria hosting Bologna. Thorsby would get a goal of the week candidate, a thunder header off a corner kick in the 7th minute to make it 1-0. Then we get an own goal by Regini in the 44th minute to make it 1-1 going into halftime. And then the young starlet, Mr. Orsolini, would get the goal in the 52nd minute. Beautiful assist by Musabaro. That's a goal of the week candidate there, just by the assist there. And then to wrap up all the games, Udinese hosting Genoa, 2 bottom feeders of the league. It was always going to be a difficult game to watch, but it was actually fairly entertaining considering the 2 lowly positions of these clubs. The goal scoring would get started in the 34th minute. Rodrigo De Paul get the goal in the 34th. Wonderfully done, 1-0. The scoreline will hold there for a while, and then the man we've been talking about all podcast long, well, at least in the beginning, Gianluca Scamacca, he would get a goal, make it 1-1, and we thought, well, okay, game on, here we go. But they go to VAR, and his left toe was just off. Unfortunately, the right call, but he was offside. But a great goal nonetheless by him, but does not count. And Udinese would get the win 1-0. A nice 3 points for them. They needed that for sure. So that would be all the games, Frank. Where do you want to start on this one?
Good comeback for Bologna, and good to see them start getting some wins and start getting into some form that befits who they are.
Yeah.
I think they were underachieving terribly to open the season, and now it looks like they're getting the wind in their sails a little bit, and and winning some games. And Sampdoria here, dropping some points as well in the process. This was a very entertaining game. You are right. 22 shots between both teams, and Bologna had a little bit more of the ball. A guy that hey, Nicholas, thank you appreciate the love, Nicholas. Welcome.
Thank you.
Drop a like, subscribe, please. As long as you guys are in the chat, please do that too. We would appreciate it. I have a lot of interest, and we always talk about some of these attacking pieces with Bologna. When you talk about Barrow, Soriano, Sansoni when he plays, or Cellini, we talk about Palacio, who I think is in there for experience and hold up play and helping him keep the ball. And I mean, he's going to poach goals. He's not going to, really create his own. But then you look at how else Bologna is built. Tomiyasu came with some fanfare, was a subject of transfer rumors as a center back, and a guy that definitely has some talent. Good night, Stevie. Ciao. But a couple of guys here that I want to pick everybody's brain about if you've had a chance to watch them. I like this Jerdy Scouten. If I'm pronouncing his name right. I like his game. I think he's kind of the perfect holding midfielder for what Bologna like to do. And then I like the energy that Matthias Svanberg brings to this team.
Absolutely.
I think that he flies under the radar too, in terms of talent. And I think that these are two guys that performed well, in Bologna's comeback effort. They were substituted. Svanberg came off after 69 minutes. They brought on Dominguez, and then Scouten comes on from Medell, and Medell's kind of that bulldog that, all right, we're 2-1 up. He's in there to just hunt down everything, for 11, 15 minutes, whatever Medell can give at this stage of his career. I like how Bologna is put together, and I like to see that they're getting results now that are appropriate for who they are.
Yeah, Joe, we've talked many times about how good this club is, and I think what we've been trying to harp on is how Moussa Barrow should be getting more minutes. It seems like when he's in there, Bologna win. He always is doing something. He should be really the leading striker, I think, but he plays so well on the left-hand side. That assist that he had to Orsolini is something magical. What do you think about this attacking qualities that this club has at their disposal, and including Mr. Barrow? Like, how good can they be if they got the right number 9?
Yeah, I love that front four. Barrow, Orsolini, Palacio, and Soriano, and when Sansone is there, it's another option. Barrow's kind of playing right now like a Jeremy Boga on that side, where he can cut in on his strong right foot, and he can play those bending shots. He's got a great shot on him too, just like Boga does. Or he can play that cross, in that case, to the far post. So, I think they have a lot of potential. I think they just need to do it a little bit more consistently. I think that's where they've dropped some points where maybe they shouldn't have, but I think there's a ton of potential there.
Yeah, Casey's saying that crazy to say, but Bologna are better built than Fiorentina, and I don't think that's crazy to say. I mean, you just look at the players in both squads, and you're like, my goodness, Bologna, they can trouble a lot of teams. We've seen that even last year, but now hopefully consistency is what like Joe is saying. If they can build on consistency, they can be that next maybe Sassuolo team that takes that next leap to really challenge big boys week in and week out. But a lot of potential there with this team. Hopefully they can figure it out with Sinisa Mihailovic there. We'll be looking forward to that because a fun team to watch, no doubt about it, every week.
Goals of the week.
So,
go ahead.
In that goal of the week category, except it was in his own net, but he had no one around him, no pressure, and he scored a beautiful goal in his own net.
yeah, absolutely. That's a nice tap. And before we get to goals of the week, though, I actually want to talk to Joe about Hellas and Sassuolo. That game had a lot of billing before it. We weren't sure which way it was going to go, but we thought both teams were going to be a great matchup. How did you see that matchup? Obviously, Boga and Berardi had some fantastic goals in this one, but a pretty good matchup nonetheless between two teams that are not many people are they're starting to talk about now, but it's two teams that have been pretty good over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I think Verona were a little bit unfortunate in this match. I the better team, but
they had like 3 posts or something crazy.
4, yeah. And Sassuolo, what impressed me was they actually played they didn't play as offensive as they normally do. They kind of back a little bit more. They didn't have Chicho Caputo. I think Raspadori started at striker, so they relied on Boga and Berardi to do the goal scoring, and they linked up on both of the goals. So credit to them. And for me, I mean, two of the brightest coaches in Serie A, and the Zerbi and even Juric. We'll see if either of them remain at these clubs. They're both working wonders. I was one of the people that I think I finally have to start giving Verona credit. I held out as long as I could, thinking that with the losses of Amrabat and Rahmani and Kumbula, that was just too much for the players that they brought in. It was nice to see Veloso came back in this game. He's their captain. He nearly scored. I think he either hit the bar or he was stopped, but on a free kick. But I have to start giving Verona credit. I felt like they deserved a bit more out of this match. But then at the same time, you have to give Sassuolo credit, because what good teams do is, even when perhaps they're not at their best or when they don't have their best players, they find ways to win, and that's what they did.
Yeah, Contilli had a couple big saves in this game as well. So
yeah, I think Verona had something like 19 shots in that game or something ridiculous. So it was a game that was, I think that we were, when we were on Calcio Connection, Richard, we were talking about a game that people should probably tune into and pay attention to, because I think that their fixtures, as far as the top half of the table is concerned, with even Sassuolo being a contender for Europe, I think that the intent has been signaled with them, at least this early in the season. So, we'll see if they can keep that up. Goals of the week. I'll go first because I only have 5. Richard has like 13 goals, even though we only supposed to do a top 5. But he says, since I nominated myself for Who Won Calcio Twitter, he says he could put 13 goals in his goals of the week. So
Richard, because I didn't plan for the.
I mean, I stopped playing for 2 here. There we go.
Okay, that's the excuse now? Okay. Actually, before we do that, I mean, and gosh, we're going to keep people in suspense. Casey had a comment about the coaches in this league. And how they're more progressive now. When you're talking about Pioli at Milan. Let's talk about how much modern-minded coaching has changed the likes of Atalanta, Milan, Sassuolo, and Roma, and how important it is to Serie A to have these type of coaches. Let's talk about the teams that he specifies in particular. And Milan and Roma are brand names in this league. And they have managers that are, I think that they're man managers. They have a style, and they've recruited
well.
They've recruited very well. And I think that Milan, it's just been an awful long time since they've had a backroom staff that has had their shit together, where they can recruit a team, assemble a team, and have it be functional on the pitch, and not have a whole bunch of crazy issues. I think the obvious leadership of players like Ibrahimovic and Kjaer have been massive.
Yes.
And especially for the development of those young players, so that when the torch is finally passed and those guys move on, those young players will be veterans ready to lead the next young players. So they've tiered the system a little bit with how they've built their team, and it's definitely gotten a lot better. Roma have solidified defensively, and they've created more options going forward. They're not so Dzeko dependent anymore. They're not so Zaniolo dependent anymore. It's plug guys in and play the system that Fonseca has. So they've done really well with that. I still think that there are going to be games where Roma are going to fall apart on you. Okay. But I'm not going to change my tune about them from a mentality standpoint. I think there's still a fragility to them as far as that's concerned. Atalanta, Sassuolo, and then I'll even lump Hellas Verona into that conversation. These are clubs, and we have said this in the past, and Atalanta lead the way because they're visible. They're in the Champions League. They have far more modest budgets than the likes of Milan and Roma, but they have managers in place who have a system. They have a backroom staff that is in lockstep with what the manager needs to be successful. And, we made this comment, if you watch the movie Moneyball, about the Oakland A's, it's like, all right, what do Atalanta go and get? They go and get guys that create chances, and they go and get them for a bargain. They get guys like Malinowski. They got Ilicic for man, they all were smoking cigarettes for what they got for Ilicic from Fiorentina. I mean, they got him for like what, 5-6 million?
Yeah, it wasn't.
They got Malinovsky for next to nothing. They got Miranchuk from Lokomotiv Moscow for 15 million. You watch when this guy gets more opportunities, he will be a stud. I watched him play for Lokomotiv Moscow. I said, this is exactly a guy that Atalanta would go out and recruit and go and get. And 15 million might end up being a bargain by the time Miranchuk's done at Atalanta.
Yeah.
So that's what they do. Sassuolo, they have a style. Serie has built things around Domenico Berardi. He's able to keep Jeremy Boga. They found a way to get Locatelli into that system, and they've got guys that fit. Caputo. All you got to do is just get on the top end of all of this and score. Juricic is having an amazing season for them.
Yeah.
And the reason why they've got to be taken seriously now is because they recruited some defenders that aren't going to be guys that Joe wants at Napoli or we want at Milan, okay? But they're better than what Sassuolo have had in the past. Kirikez, I mean, you didn't have Kirikez, though, before at Napoli, all right? But, Kirikez is better than anything they've had before, okay? Ayhan is better than anything they've had before. So, And then you got Hellas Verona, who their system by comparison is far more rigid, okay? They're gonna grind out. They play and they grind out results, and there are times where their football is actually pretty attractive, not to the game that Atalanta or Sassuolo play, but effective and attractive in spots. And you've got guys like Kumbula and Rahmani who are outstanding for them and who have moved on, but you still have guys like Zakanye, I think, is the next guy that's going to be making a big money move from that team. You've got Lazovic, who seems to fit in with that team quite well. Veloso now comes in as the captain. Tomese's playing well, off to a very good start. You bring in a guy like Ceccarini, who might not be as flattering as a guy like Kumbula, but has experience and knows how to play in a defense like that. So, they've gone out and got the guys that fit what Juric wants to do. So, I mean, I think that these three teams, when you see what managers are doing, what the managers are doing and the backroom staff being able to work in cooperation with that, they're making Serie A far more interesting, and they're making it a departure from the traditional six. There are teams in here that are making the traditional six that we usually see at the top of the table very, very uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Joe, I'll let it over to you first.
Yeah, I think, it's funny. Last season we had a ton of goals, but a lot of them were because of crazy handball calls.
Yeah.
This season we still have quite a bit of goals, even though that rule was changed. And a lot of it is on the managers. But I'm more of the view that the best managers in the league, and Frank, you mentioned Verona being rigid, are the ones that play the right system with the pieces that they have.
Yeah.
And that's what those guys are doing. You don't play modern football just for the sake of playing modern football. You play that because you have the right guys. Usually you need good wing backs to play, a 3-5-2 system. So Sassuolo, they have those guys. Atalanta, they have those guys. Although, a lot of people are jumping off that Atalanta bandwagon this year. We'll see. I mean, they do historically start slow and then pick it up. So maybe don't jump off the wagon just yet. But my view is that the best managers are the ones that get the best with, the players that they have on their squads.
Yeah, and then a little bit to Casey's point too about like the offensive minded that we've seen of some of these coaches now, and you can also throw in there obviously Napoli. Napoli's been playing this way for a while. Pirlo, what he's trying to do with Juventus, trying to change them to more an offensive style. It's the old style of we're going to play catenaccio, play defensive, not give up our cards too much, just make sure we keep it zero goals allowed. That's changed now. Now it's about using the pieces we have and exploiting the other team and making it an attractive, fun, scoring goals. Yeah. And it's fun to watch. And this is why other leagues are now starting to come and watch Serie A. They're like, okay, these guys are scoring a lot of goals. I remember hearing a comment on Twitter from somebody who didn't watch Serie A before, and they're like, that's a lot of goals. Do they always score these many goals? Like, yeah, the last couple of years, this is not a fluke weekend. It happens all the time now. It's the last 3-4 years. It's been goals galore, and it's getting better and better. More and more teams are now involved. So, I mean, it's entertaining, and it's a mindset that's changed over the years, I think, and it's probably all begun because of Napoli, the way they've been playing ball since 2015 or whatever it is. So,
yeah, and I think one thing that you're seeing more nowadays than maybe you didn't see as much before is that teams are actually playing two systems. They attack in one formation and they defend in a different one.
Absolutely.
That's I mean, one thing that we love about Serie A is it's a very tactically impressive league, probably more so than any other.
Yep. You know, and for a while you could chalk up to you could chalk. I hear you guys all talking about De Zerbi either to Barcelona or to Italy. Hell no. When it's time for Pioli to move on, I want De Zerbi at Milan. I mean, if this seriously.
Yeah. I mean, hey, why not? He should go to a bigger club for sure.
Yeah. But so my train of thought. I mean, I think when we saw the uptick in goals, and we started talking about this really from the very beginning, ever since the beginning of this podcast. Almost 5 years ago, we came on. Yeah, we started. You see, this is it. It's the Serie A sit-down charm. We came out. We start this podcast, and now Serie A is a fucking attacking league. All right. So, Richard, we can take credit for this.
We could try.
But I mean, we could but for a while we could operate under the assumption was that there's just some god awful teams in this league that are going to yield so many goals, and that's why you see the uptick in goals. But that's not really the case anymore, because you're seeing Inter and Torino. I mean, Inter's a brand name. Torino's still a brand name, even though they've got their issues. And you're seeing a 4-2 game there. You're seeing 4 goals between Napoli and Milan, 2 brand name teams. You usually see that be more rigid. So I mean, it's kind of a shocking state of affairs when you see a weekend full of goals and Atalanta's in a goalless game. It's gotten to that point.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Speaking of goals, five of the 5. My top 5. Let's do it now. Number 5, I've got the Borja Mayoral goal, just because of the Spinazzola pass. It was just brilliant. I mean, that split everybody in the stadium.
Yeah.
Let alone the Parma players. So well taken there. In at number 4, the ball from Parolo to Immobile and the header from Immobile makes my top 5. Number 3, Hoga putting it away, doing the scissors around Manolas and then finishing. Jeremy Boga's curler in at number 2 for me, and then goal of the week, the volley from Henrik Mkhitaryan. Just that's on the rack for goal of the season.
Yeah, that was a bullet of a shot by him. My top 5 just kept changing like a live table. It's kept going depending on the game. It's kept going up and down. So honorable mentions first. Both Ronaldo's goals, first and second goals. I thought both of them were really well taken. Zlatan's second. He wasn't my top 5, but his second is an honorable mention. Thorsby, his header off that corner kick was such a powerful header. You don't see that kind of header or that kind of power off a header like that that often. And then to round out my honorable mentions, Musabaro assist to Orsolini. Really well done. Nice curler there from the left wing side. So top 5, it's a tie. It's 2 goals that are almost identical. Zlatan's first goal and Immobile's goal from Parolo, both goals. Beautiful crosses in and the header by the attackers. Well done there. Number 4 for me. Haugo's coming in there, beating Manolas, getting a nice chip shot over the goalkeeper. Best goal of the game for me in that one. Number 3, I'm gonna give it to the Sassuolo boys, both Jeremy Boga and Berardi. 2 wonderful strikes in that. Boga's strike was beautiful. The goalkeeper didn't even move. And then Berardi with a bullet of a shot. Number 2 for me, team goal for Torino. Miete to get the backheel flick to Zaza, but the whole play is setting that up off the turnover. Wonderfully done. Zaza putting it away. And just like you, Frank, number 1 for me, Mkhitaryan with his blast of a goal. I mean, what a shot by him.
Yep. Joe, are you in agreement, or any other ones that we missed? Or
yeah, no, I agree. I think one that I really like, not so much because it was such a beautiful goal, was the Benevento goal, the Improta goal, because Improta got his first start. It was more a shout to Inzaghi because he started Improta his first game. At halftime, he takes off. He brings on Roberto Insigne, and the 2 of them right after the break link up for the goal, and it was a pretty decent shot. So I'd throw that one in there as well.
Casey's son is the only person in like the last 6 months to call me cool. So that's maybe even longer than that. So, oh my, okay, I'll take it.
yeah, absolutely.
Any compliment we can get. Quick jump into Serie A teams in Europe. We'll make it quick. Juve winning today's games. Juve 2-1 win over Ferencváros at the death. Alvaro Morata, Dibush just Little bit of a howler from him. The header was powerful enough, but nonetheless, Juve leave it late, but still get the 3 points and secure qualification into the last 16. Lazio take a big step toward qualification by beating Zenit by 3-1. It was a Ciro Immobile brace. Marco Parolo getting on the score sheet there. Juba scoring for Zenit. I think that Zenit's not the Zenit that people were afraid of several years ago. And I think Lazio is taking care of business and just further cementing their place. They're pretty much on their way to the round of 16. And when you consider that all of the issues that Lazio were having, with COVID and with loss of personnel and having to navigate through this, for Lazio to be in a position where they're, 6 points out of the top spot in Serie A and in a position to qualify for the Champions League with everything they've had to go through, it's pretty hard to argue. We're going to talk about Roberto De Zerbi and the job he's done so far to start at Sassuolo. You can probably say Pioli having Milan at top of the table, but Simone Inzaghi has probably done the best job so far out of any manager in Serie A.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the work he's done just to muster up a team that, they barely had 13 guys for that one game, and they found a way to win that game, or it was a draw that game. Either way, Inzaghi's been doing a fantastic job both in the league and in Europe, and I think full credit goes to him. He's got to be one of the manager of the year candidates. Joe, what are your thoughts on what Inzaghi's done for Lazio?
Yeah, very impressive, and I think you also got to give a bit of credit to Ilitare and Claudio Lotito, because a lot of Laziali didn't feel like they had a good transfer window, but I think they did.
Yeah.
That against Juve, they made 5 quality substitutions, and they ended up getting that late Caicedo goal.
Yep.
And Pirlo, I think, only made 3 in that match because he had a short bench. So I think, on top of the fact that Inzaghi already did an amazing job with this team, now they give him a few extra pieces off the bench with Andreas Pereira. Jean-Daniel Akpa-Akpro has been really good. They've got more options.
Yeah.
And he's making use of them when he really needs it because of all the COVID issues they've got over there.
Yeah. We won't spend a whole lot of time talking about Juve. We expect them to get 3 points against Ferencváros. Probably didn't expect them to get it the way that they did, but Ferencváros, I watched large pieces of this game, and Ferencváros was stubborn. They posed enough of a threat going forward with some of their pieces. Sergei Rebrov was a great player back in the day, and kind of that fighting mentality that he had as a player is kind of rubbing off on the players, and that he came from a Dynamo Kiev that played a very, very direct counterattacking style. So he was very familiar with what Ferencváros was going to have to do against Juve. Credit to Pirlo for making the appropriate adjustments, getting Morata in the game. Earlier question that was asked about Juve, what's wrong with Dybala?
Yeah.
I think his confidence. I mean, we talked about this with Giuseppe last week. I think ever since the arrival of Ronaldo, and now you've got all of these other playmakers coming into the fold, you've got Kulusevski, I think his confidence is just completely shattered. And we made the argument here, Joe, and I want to pick your brain about this. I think that he is, even when he was at the heights back in 2017, when he helped Juve get to the Champions League final, I always stopped short of calling him a world-class player. I said, this is a really good player. I'm not going to anoint him as world-class yet. And I think that what we're seeing, over the last couple of seasons is exactly why he's not world-class. He's a very good player. He could, make a splash helping somebody else down the road. But I'll give the hot take, and I gave this on Thursday. I don't think if Juve ever wanted to sell him, I think that he would end up getting sold for far less than what people would perceive, because of everybody that Juve added to the team, and you've basically rendered a talent surplus.
Yeah, absolutely. They have so many players that it's impossible to fit everyone in. And if you do, you end up playing guys like Chiesa on the wing, which everyone felt like that's not his right position. But where else do you play him when you have Dybala, Ronaldo, Morata, Kulusevski? You can't. I watched your last episode with Giuseppe, and he made the point about Morata and his confidence. And I was thinking about that today because Dybala got the start, and I was wondering if that might be the trigger that now puts Morata down. but it actually looked like it was Dybala with the confidence issues and Morata that looked pretty good when he came off the bench. So I agree. I think Dybala's value is going to start to tank a little bit if he's not a regular starter, and it starts to mess with him mentally. That's going to show up on the field, and his value is going to drop.
And we saw this also in the matchup against Cagliari as well. He came to the matchup and he had some great opportunities, and he was skyrocketing the ball way over the goal. Like his form is off, technique is off. It's just something is not right there with him. Maybe he's too busy making TikTok videos. I don't know. But he's always been just short of being a world class. And I think, to Frank's point, as good as the season as he had a couple seasons back, it was always on the road in the big games that he would not turn up. Right at home at the J Stadium, he was fantastic, getting 3 goals a game, 2 goals a game. But on the road or in the bigger games, he kind of disappeared. And maybe he needs to go to a place like maybe a place like Barcelona, Real Madrid. Maybe he can get more freedom, more a style that suits him better. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what the answer is, but it's he's struggling at the moment, and it's hard to see with a guy that has all this talent that has the potential to be world class and is just falling short.
And the other thing that maybe it's something that set him back a little bit was that injury he picked up at the end of last season. I think it was like a thigh injury or muscle injury. It's been a roller coaster ride for Dybala. From the club there was nothing they could do to get rid of him, and he just declined every offer. Then they swing all the way to where he wins the MVP of the league, and now they seem to be swinging back to Dybala being relegated to the bench and maybe not having a spot on the squad. It's crazy.
And then Casey's asking about Roma as possibly being the best Serie A team. I don't even know about that. How many more players like that do you need at Roma? You have Mkhitaryan, you have Pellegrini, you have Pedro, Carlos Perez. You have a laundry list to the point where Justin Kluivert got shipped out and is playing for RB Leipzig now.
And Zaniolo's
and Zaniolo's going to come back. Exactly. So it's. So even at that, you can't, I don't think that there'd be a place for him to fit. I think that Dybala's next move is outside of Italy, going to Spain, going to Germany, going to France. It's going to be, landing at a club with one of those teams. I don't think that physically he'd be able to hack the rigors of the Premier League week in and week out. So I think that would be his next destination beyond Serie A. And I think that there are some clubs that would probably line up and get him for a bargain, in any of those leagues. So, so it's definitely concerning when you think about Dybala. So, tomorrow, Wednesday, Inter host Real Madrid. This is an absolute critical must-win game for Inter when you take a look at the standings. And then Atalanta travel to Liverpool. Now they got taken to school at home. On match day 3. I think this will be tighter. Liverpool are dealing with injuries. They obviously don't have Van Dijk long term. Trent Alexander-Arnold won't be there. We've seen them do things with Nico Williams at right back, and it's not pretty. It's something that is something that Atalanta could potentially exploit. But the big 3 is going to be there, and they're going to be out there killing it. Salah, Firmino, Mane. It's going to be a big test for Atalanta to go and get anything at Anfield. But Napoli went there last year and got a point, so anything can happen. Your thoughts on the prospects of our Serie A teams in Wednesday's games, Joe?
I'm not too confident in Atalanta. I think, they were a bit unfortunate in the first meeting. Zapata just couldn't buy a goal. He came close so many times. Yeah. I just think they match up so poorly against this Liverpool side that probably the deadliest counterattack in the world, and Atalanta's the team that gives up those counterattacking.
Sure.
Chances. The other player that's been amazing for them, besides the 3-headed monster that you mentioned, is Diogo Jota, who's scoring like crazy. Yeah. So I think it's Atalanta. I agree it's going to probably be closer. Hopefully you don't want another blowout, but I think it's still a tough proposition for them.
Yep. Richard,
friend of the show, bag full of toffee and Everton supporter. He believes, Atalanta is going to win 10-0 to Child of Satan. But that's besides that. I don't know if it'll be that scoreline. It's going to be difficult. You need to have, Atalanta's big 3 actually perform. Ilicic needs to have better games. Zapata, Papu Gomez. They really need to show up, and the team needs to play the way that they had been playing in Champions League in years past and last year also. It's going to be difficult to ask because their defense right now is struggling. And to your point, Joe, when you're playing a counter-check that lethal and you're already giving up lots of goals as it is, it's not going to be pretty. They got to find a way to counteract that counter of the three-headed monster for Liverpool and try to find ways to capitalize. Duvan has to be better. It's going to be a difficult game. It'll be closer, but I can't see a win, unfortunately, for them.
And one of the things that they've been struggling with lately, which is very uncharacteristic of them, is they're not scoring. At the beginning of the year, they were really clinical. They were taking every chance. I think in their last 5 Serie A matches, I want to say, they scored 5 goals, which is very
They had 0 against Spezia. I mean, Spezia.
Right. For a team that scored 98 goals in Serie A last year, that's really concerning.
Yeah. It is very, very concerning. And then onto the Europa League, Roma will travel to Cluj. They travel with a 3-point edge over Young Boys and Cluj. I think that Fonseca will certainly do some rotating in this game and not be terribly bothered by it. He does get Young Boys at home on match day 5, so that will help before traveling to Sofia. So I think it's there for them to go ahead and qualify. Milan now travel to Lille after getting bounced 3-0 at home to them. You've got in the other game, obviously, Sparta Prague and Celtic are going to play each other, so that it could get a little uncomfortable for Milan here if they're going to if the Europa League is an intention for them. They're going to have to really battle it out for going through. I think if they can get a point at Lille, that's satisfactory considering there's not going to be Ibrahimovic. They're going to probably do a lot of rotating ahead of playing Fiorentina on Sunday. If they can get out of France with a point, I think that sets them up really well, and that puts them in the driver's seat to qualify. And then your team, Joe, Napoli, hosting Rijeka, should be able to be a comfortable 3 points. But we said this about when they played at home against AZ on match day 1, an AZ team that was shorthanded because of COVID. And this is a Rijeka team that you struggled with in the first half. To be a fly on the wall in the dressing room at halftime to hear what Gattuso had to say. How Napoli players didn't come out of that dressing room without a black eye or some kind of bruise on their face is astonishing to me. But let's start quickly on Napoli against Rijeka. I mean, I am sure you're expecting 3 points here, and I would think, given that it's Europa League, you don't care how you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of a must-win though, because the way the group is set up, Rijeka has no points and the other 3 have 6.
Yeah.
So you got to take those points. The one thing that concerns me a little bit, 2 things that concern me. One is the point that you made, Frank, about how we lost to Alkmaar. So there's no guarantees. And then the other thing is that we have Roma on the weekend, and I'm a little bit worried that we might be looking ahead to that match. Gattuso is very good at getting us to focus. And if we're distracted by the Roma match, there's a risk that we give up. We don't do what we should be doing in this one.
Sure. Richard, Milan traveling to Lille, a point is an accomplishment considering there's going to probably be a little bit of flipping around to do for Pioli and his team.
Yeah, I think the team is just going to try to have a much better performance, show that they really aren't that bad as they were against Lille the first go around, and really make it a good game. If they get a draw, it'd be great. I wouldn't be surprised too if they found a way to win that game just to get a little bit of revenge. But I expect a much better performance by them than they did the first game and go around. Right.
And then we've got Roma traveling to Cluj, a game that they probably should win, but Cluj at home have been dangerous in the past, and they're certainly in contention for a place. So it'll be a tough game for Fonseca's team. I'm going to give that one a draw, a score draw at that. I think we're going to see 1-1 there. And I don't think that Fonseca is going to be too. Same boat that Napoli's in with the Derby della Sud coming up. Probably not going to be terribly bothered. Players are going to overlook it, and then they're going to have the resources to just go ahead and snatch a point there. So we've kept you all in suspense, and now it's time for the part of the program, I should say, you've all been waiting for. Who won Calcio Twitter? Richard, lead us off.
All right. First one we got is from Don Totti at Zaniolo_fan. So Forza Italia came out with a tweet that says, in their Nations League trip to Bosnia, Italy have no Juventus players in the starting 11 for only the 4th time in the last 10 years. Don Totti proceeds to tweet out, the earth is healing.
Well done. At Zaniolo Fanny, past winner of Who Won Calcio Twitter. So we do appreciate it. Next one comes from Dave at Forza Inter Haiti. Fuck y'all so happy about Inter players in training, and in some strange pose, you've got Lautaro and Ashley Young, D'Ambrosio. I mean, yeah. What are they happy about?
Oh my God.
And I think that one was after a loss, if I'm not
Yeah.
After a loss. Oh my God.
Oh, God bless Inter fans. Oh my goodness. All right. Next one is from Napoli boys, far from Vesuvius. They tweet out, "Good luck, Juventus. We are all behind you today." And then it says official sources stated that this is false and misleading. Well done, boys. Well done.
Great stuff. Okay. Bonaventura at Bonaventura comes in with mom asking, "Where's the car key?" Me, AC Milan. Mom, what? I said AC Milan on top of the table.
Hey-o. This one goes out to Juventus, Morata and Quadrado playing games, and Weston McKinney for the new man goes down, unfortunately. I thought that was a little funny there, so I put two of that in there. Give Juventus some love in this.
Yeah, I would have said that Morata's a new man, but he's been there before.
Yeah.
So I guess
That's true.
Really. So
one last one. I think this is a good one too.
At Muja.again. And you need him in your life. Right now he's at Mooj Mudded, Mooj Mudded. He has changed his handle so many times, and just trying to keep up with him has gotten exhausting. Am I still following him even? I got to look.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I'm not. He must have redone his account. All right. But anyway, Suso has not scored or assisted in the league since February 16th, 2020. Milan has not lost a league match since March 8th, 2020. Lovely. He is long gone from Milan, but Milan fans will never forget.
Never forget. Which one you got, boys?
Oh, man.
Joe, you're the guest. So which one did you like?
I got to go with the Inter one. I'm still laughing about that one.
Oh, that was priceless.
I'm on board with that. Day at Forza Inter Haiti. I think that's the winning. I think that wins. Where can I share these silly posts with you? Just Casey, it's hashtag Who Won Calcio Twitter. There's a whole stream because we've been doing this for weeks now, so there's a whole bunch of them. Knock yourself out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's by far the winner. That's unanimous. I mean, I can't stop laughing at it.
Congratulations. I'm going to go ahead and call it out. Congratulations at Forza Inter Haiti. There we go. You are this week's winner of Who Won Calcio Twitter. Folks, if you're listening to our podcast and you find a Calcio tweet that's very amusing, that makes you laugh, makes everybody laugh, bring it to our attention with hashtag Who Won Calcio Twitter at Serie Sitdown. We do this. It's a weekly contest, and this one was, I think this is our first unanimous win, Richard.
I think it is. Absolutely. Well done. It was well deserved, for sure.
All right. Well, with that, I think we'll put a bow on this edition of the Serie Sit Down, and we're going to give Joe an opportunity to give a shameless plug of anything that he'd like. Go ahead, Joe. It's yours.
Thank you so much. First of all, thanks for having me. It's a blast. I love talking calcio. I love listening to you guys watching on YouTube. You can find my podcast, the Forza Napoli Calcio podcast, at Forza Napoli Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Twitter at Joe_Fischetti5. And like I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, but we do 2 episodes a week. Every other episode, I cover all 10 Serie A matches in about 20 minutes. It's more analytical than just simply describing the goals. So definitely check that out. You don't have to be, I start every episode by saying you don't have to be a Napoli fan to enjoy it. So at Forza Napoli Pod.
Excellent stuff. And everybody give him a follow. Joe, we can't thank you enough for joining us this week and earning your first cap. And something tells me your second cap is not going to be too far away. So looking forward to when that arrives. Richard, the floor is yours.
Yes. First, to answer Rajiv, he asked me in Kobalt to Milan. At this point, Schalke's a shit show, so it would not surprise me. I'm sure they're gonna lose him. So it's a very good possibility, and it's not a bad location to be at Milan, I think. So you can follow me at r_KHARMAN anywhere on social media, and then check us out on YouTube, putting out videos. I'm sure we're gonna have a European roundup for match day 4 coming up here after Thursday's games have all wrapped up. So stay tuned for that, and we're also gonna be just put on more videos. So thank you.
You can follow me at FTC_21 on Twitter. You could also catch me on onsideradio.com on Fridays at 2:00 Eastern with Alex Dono, host of Man of the Match. I give a little 15-minute exchange of ideas on Calcio. So do check that out. Log on. It's onsideradio.com. Listen live. Richard,
let's give them a plug because we were on their show. We were taking over their show, Calcio Connection. So give those boys a follow as well. They're great podcasts. Yeah,
at Calcio Con Pod. Check out those guys. It was Alex Dono and Jerry Mancini. Jerry did pop into the chat here a little bit earlier, so we appreciate that. We did with Alex on Inter Miami duty on Friday. We hijacked the Calcio Connection pod and jumped in there with Jerry, and we talked to Jerry for 90 minutes and decided to give it back to Alex and said, here. We love you, Jerry. Serie Sit Down. We have our own channel on Apple Podcasts. We have our own channel on SoundCloud. You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever podcasts are played, you can find Serie Sit Down. You can go to @Serie Sit Down on Twitter or Instagram. Give us any comments, questions, any takes on future podcasts. We'd love to hear from you and love to hear your ideas. We're also on Facebook, so check us out there. This is the YouTube channel. If you like what you saw, please subscribe to the channel. Please drop a like. It means a lot to us. And if you're listening to us on any of the podcasts, 5 stars, give us a glowing review. We really appreciate it. Hardcore Italians, thank you very much for the swag. We appreciate that. Joe, we appreciate having you on. Thank you again. We're going to get you on again real soon. No problem. And chat, wow. I think we had some new faces yet again. And
good to see.
The chat turned out, had some great questions. Keep them coming. For Joe, for Richard, I'm Frank. As always, thank you for listening. Be sure you tell your paisans about us. Ciao.